fuck is McClay?
Check.
You can just slate for this.
Bogcast, episode 3, Tyler Bird.
And then put that right. Yeah, just put it.
Can you clap in front of your mic real quick? Just clap. Or talking to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Tyler Bird, podcast, episode 3.
Awesome. Thanks you, bro. Sweet.
Yes,
sir.
Oh yeah.
Action.
Oh shit, hang on a second. Sorry, director, can we cut?
Yep, cut.
Give me like 5 seconds and do another action.
All right.
No, camera's still going. Keep rolling.
You ready, Keith?
Let's do it.
Mac, you ready?
Yep.
All right.
Tyler,
Ready.
action.
All right, this is the Bogcast, episode 3. I'm with my co-host again, Brian McClay. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, brother. I'm really excited for this episode. I've been looking forward to this. Get some information out there that the public needs to hear.
Hell yeah. I saw you in that on that Instagram picture. I just actually wanted to ask you really quick when you were dressed all fly in the suit with
Do
your
you like
brother.
it?
Yeah.
Look dapper.
What was that?
That was Greenfield's wedding.
That was yesterday?
Nice.
Yeah, congratulations,
Oh, shit,
Katie and
nice.
David. So,
Congratulations,
Yeah.
David. Nice.
yes,
Um,
it was a beautiful
For
wedding.
some reason, I thought you already went. Was that in California?
No, yeah, we did the bachelor party type thing in San Diego.
Oh,
So.
I see. Okay,
yeah,
I thought that
yeah.
for some. I don't know. I'm fucking a stoner. That's why we're having this episode because of
Damn
my
right.
love for weed.
Yeah, and really, the information, guys, that this episode's going to bring forward is very important. So,
It's recording, right, dog?
Yes.
All right. And that brings us to my other fucking best friend co-host, Jason Oompa Pavone. How's it going, buddy?
Yes, sir. How you doing, guys?
Good, man. How was your week? You have a good week?
I did. I was actually really sick. I think I had the flu from Wednesday to Friday, actually.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I was really sick, but I pulled through.
Hell yeah. So
Yes, sir.
we're going to share the bong
a
today
pleasure.
so I can get it, so I can have it for the next week.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, anyway, I'm really excited to have our guest today. His name is Tyler Bird. He's been in the medical marijuana industry for, over 6 years?
Around 6, yeah.
Nice, man. And I just want to say welcome. Thanks so much for coming, man. The reason why I'm having you on is I met you at your brother Justin's get-together.
Right.
And you were just not dropping some knowledge bombs on me, dude, about marijuana and weed and the industry. And I was blown away. So I was like, we got to get this guy on the podcast. So I just thought if we could just kind of recreate that, not recreate, but just talk about those same things, you know what I mean? Just with microphones. And some of the information you were talking about is super important. And like he was saying, we need to get that stuff out there. So
That's cool.
maybe we could start with maybe your history with weed and your experience. And actually, when was the first time you ever smoked weed?
The first time I smoked I was 27 years old.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
Wow,
pretty damn
27?
cool. Yeah.
Well,
Late bloomer.
26,
Late bloomer.
20, yeah.
Oh,
so-
shit.
yeah, somewhere around that age, yeah.
Damn.
I was injured on the job, and my feet were crushed underneath an oil cooler.
Oh,
And
man.
so, for years I never smoked. You know, it was like a thing where, a huge stigma that everyone talks about all the time. I mean, don't do this, don't do that. We all grew up in that generation. But finally I got tired of the pain and decided that I was going to research cannabis, and
What made you research it? Is like you just heard about it? Like what made you decide to I'm going to start researching cannabis? Like
Well,
after like being 27 years old and the pain and.
Right. Yeah. Well, I just, I heard different places around the country were legalizing it for, medicinal use. And I just said, hey, I'm just going to, check it out, read a little bit about what different cannabinoids do and terpenes and stuff like that. Because all the information is out there. People want to put the time and effort into it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you're good. So when you started looking, I mean, was it internet? What was going on here in Arizona medical wise?
Oh, it had already been legalized
Okay.
I think, or yeah, it was by that time. It was like 2010 out here.
And did you when you had your feet crushed? You said, were they broken? What happened?
Well, my toes were crushed.
Wow.
On both legs. Yeah, all the way across, and I had to have pins put in my right foot.
Oh wow.
Damn.
And so yeah, if it due to the benefits of the anti-inflammatory capabilities of cannabinoids,
Oh yeah.
it's able to reduce the swelling to where I don't have to have the pins pulled.
So with a lot of people, a lot of people that I know, and especially people that I love and that are close to me, that kind of went that route of doing research and trying to figure out a way to stop the pain. They had something like that happen, or something where they were given pain medication by a doctor.
Exactly.
And we all know that that's a very slippery slope, especially in the from the late 90s all the way up until the 2010.
The huge opioid crisis with
Yes.
Purdue Pharmaceuticals.
Yes,
and
I mean, just throwing it down people's throats. I mean, there's a lot of money in that pharmaceutical field, and unfortunately, I think that one of the biggest problems was when that crisis got out of hand. The government and the the overseers of the medical field said, if we find somebody that's addicted, we're done dealing with them. And it really created more of a headache, because you got people who don't know about drugs, were thinking they were getting something from their doctor that is okay, because their doctor's giving it to them, and we all look up, to these medical professions, right?
Right.
So, and then the next thing you know, when they say, hey, I think I have a problem, I think I'm physically addicted to this stuff, and the doctor says, oh, you are? Guess what? We're done with you. And they cut them off, right? So a lot of these people, the next thing we know, they're in the streets and they're searching for more hardcore drugs. And unfortunately, once you start dealing with that, you're dealing with how to get it and the people in that field. And I really think that once the medical marijuana industry especially started getting out there and the info getting out there, people realized that they didn't have to go that route.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so were you fed the pain medication also?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was. I was very sick from it. I had to take like 350, 400 plus milligram hydrocodones after I got out of the hospital, and I was very ill from it for probably like 2 months. So yeah, it wasn't an option anymore.
That's the best.
Yeah.
So after 2 months, that's right when you decided to go to cannabis? Or?
Well, no. I spent another couple years dealing with, because the accident happened in 2011. So I spent a couple more years working with work boots on, and come home and drink. Things get really depressing.
Self-medicate.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
you were off the painkillers, but you were drinking to medicate.
Yeah, at times,
yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
because it's like a sharp shooting glass pain through your
Oh yeah.
leg,
And there's something about pain that a lot of people that haven't dealt with that type of pain, they don't realize. I mean, it's completely debilitating,
Absolutely
mentally, physically. It's a big issue.
Well, the amount of depression too. Like, that's what's another huge issue in this country right now, is the lack of attention towards mental health.
Oh, for sure.
It's a huge issue nowadays, and I think a lot of people that, if they do, receive some sort of alternative medication, some sort of regimen, mentally as well as physically, it's very beneficial.
Yes.
Tyler, did your doctors ever recommend doing medical?
No, they didn't outright say it, but it was kind of like an illegal gray area at the time. Back when the accident happened, it was only a year old.
Yeah.
So they weren't jumping on the table to do it. But I have met a lot of doctors since then. Many people around that agree that cannabis is a fantastic avenue.
It's amazing how that works, because I've kind of dealt with that myself with
because they don't teach it in medical school.
No.
So that would be a huge issue right there. There's a huge boundary between and the people that come to see us. People that work in the industry, they're looking for us for the information, because the physicians aren't trained for it at all. So
and let's be honest
been a huge
here.
issue.
Not only they're not trained for it, some of these physicians, they have people that they're bound to, right?
Exactly.
I liked how you looked at the camera on
Big
that.
pharma.
Big pharma.
Big pharma once again. Exactly.
And
yeah.
big pharma is intertwined with big government and big business, right? I mean, they're all like this. And if I'm
They're all
sorry, guys,
scratching
if
each
you
other's
don't,
backs.
if
McClay's
you
going to
don't
get
think
shot.
if you don't think that's true,
Tomorrow.
We have to edit this whole part out.
yeah. So I think that's another amazing thing, is that a lot of people in this field, this medical marijuana field, are professional. I mean, people think that the professionalism isn't there either. So there is professionals in this field that can tell you what is really going on out there. They're
Absolutely.
not gonna, they know what they're talking about.
He's
So
right here.
exactly. That's what I'm.
Yeah, that's what I
exactly.
said. That's what I said.
I have had a neurologist suggest me to go do medical.
Was
That's
any
cool.
doctors around when she did it?
No, but
That's
it was
why.
it was definitely off the record.
Neurology.
Yeah.
That's
It was
interesting.
definitely off the record, and how he told me was specific.
What's his name?
Um,
That's an intro. I've never heard neurologist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the good things about having you on here is that, I know when Keith told me about it, that your knowledge, there's so much new stuff coming out every day.
It's huge. Yeah, it is huge. Right now we're looking at, in total, the mapped cannabinoids that are available that have been found in cannabis, over 130. It's THCA, THC, CBDA, and CBD are only just 4. You know what I mean? So
Can you explain
There's-
to everybody what cannabinoids are?
cannabinoids bond to receptors in our body. We have a CB1 and CB2 receptor. And in my opinion, I think the endocannabinoid system, the discovery of it was in the early 90s. It's a fantastic discovery because it's almost like a supplementary system in my book that we should have been supplementing all along. THC, CBD, those are just 2 like we talked about. But the endocannabinoid system is huge, huge. And cannabinoids in general can be found in other places too. Like you can actually find cannabinoids in hops, for example. There's many other places around that that have been tested that you can find it. But more often than not, in cannabis sativa, indica, and some ruderalis plants.
Just for
The cannabis genus.
complete noobs, can you just explain the differences between THC and CBD and the kind of benefits and what the psychoactive effects between, what the difference are?
Euphoria,
all
stuff
those
like
things.
that. Yeah, well, THC has the ability to break the blood-brain barrier a little more than some other cannabinoids. It's a bigger avenue for that, but both CBD and THC do that on the CB1. CB1 is when you're smoking. Okay, that would be like the 3 to 5 minute ingestion time. If you have to eat it, that'll be a longer process. You're looking at, for CB2, that's anywhere from 3 to 5 hours or longer, ingestion time. But
So there's when there's CBDs, you're saying CB1 and CB2, they're different. They're different.
Different types
Yeah.
of CBD.
Well, so
oh
what's
no,
the-
no, I'm talking about receptors.
Oh, got you.
So
Oh.
yeah, I wanted to break it down further because
Yeah.
when you ingest those things, they act
I see what you're
differently,
saying
too.
when
So-
you're saying 1 and 2 now. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
CB1
okay.
and 2. Yeah,
So
if
when-
you eat it, it's CB2, and then CB1 is by smoking
see,
it,
okay.
inhalation.
So are these
vaporization.
receptors kind of like these CBDs or CBs? They're kind of like batteries, right? That need to get charged, and then once they're charged by the cannabis or whatever else has the cannabinoid.
Oh, sort of, yeah. Yeah, they're influenced by whatever will bond with them. And, the reason why a lot of synthetic cannabinoids haven't worked out is because they don't bond properly. So that would be like another thing, like you hear about Marinol in the past. You've heard about all these different forms of synthetic cannabinoids. They just will not bond to those receptors properly.
Yeah.
And so it's essentially like there's a little puzzle piece waiting to be bonded there, but it's not always full. It can be passive. It can pull on and off. And that's naturally the momentum that you get from cannabinoids from cannabis.
That's
Just,
crazy.
really quick.
It bonds a lot better than anything ever made in the lab.
Just really quick, can you just explain the difference the THC and CBD has on the body?
Okay, well, THC, they both carry, THC and CBD carry a lot of similar characteristics. Obviously, you have a huge euphoria that's very famous with THC, but you also have a lot of, well, I'll have to go into the entourage effect in a little bit, but the idea of THC, I mean, you can take and use it, and it will have obviously huge effects on anti-inflammatory. We're talking more about like people that need, help with seizures, things like that. It'll actually reset a lot of that. I mean, you got people that actually need the psychostimulus of it because of its neurology, the neuropath that actually.
Oh
will
wow!
shoot
So
across.
is the THC that helps the seizures? That's the part of it.
CBD does it as well, but it does it in a different way.
Yeah.
It doesn't ingest the same way. It's a very different. They call it non-psychoactive. I mean, it is to an extent, but it's more. It's like one of the strongest antipsychotics, I think, known to man
CBD?
that I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very interesting.
Just
how it
explain the
has-
benefits of CBD to people that don't know.
Well, CBD is, THC and CBD also carry a really good proponent. They're huge in apoptosis, which helps old cells move on and new cells grow.
Which is
So-
very important in the
which is-
cancer.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So CBD is a huge proponent for that, and by using them together, you're going to get an enormous benefit called the entourage effect. And there are other cannabinoids out there like CBG and things like that, but more on the CBD realm. It's an unregulated, cannabinoid that you can buy around. That's the second most populant in cannabis,
Yeah.
and it has a lot of the same benefits as THC, but THC can do quite a lot more at times.
Especially in the pain realm, and you
For
were
mental health too.
Yes.
I mean,
you were
somebody
talking about
really needs
the
that change.
neural pathways, right?
Right.
And so one of the ways that I was kind of told that this how this works is it almost like creates a bridge on those pathways that are messed up and
That
kind
are
of
blocked.
that like resets them so that they're working again. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it can actually open up other pathways for people that have Alzheimer's, dementia, any sort of thing like that. Parkinson's,
Yeah.
for example, some sort of, really degenerative disease like that. You can open up those pathways again. It can actually unblock plaques as well in the brain
Yeah.
and things like that.
It's-
so.
One of the things that I like to talk about people when I'm trying to explain, how important the medical marijuana industry is this drug has been part of the human evolution, or this plant, I shouldn't say drug, this plant has been part of the human evolution.
Mm-hmm.
For a very long time,
for-
like 12,000 years,
Yes.
I think, is
Mhm.
how long cannabis has been with people.
And it's
Yeah.
and what they're saying now, and what I'm starting to hear is that it can also be talked about as one of the things that helped us evolve as quickly as we did. A lot of people hear about the stoned ape theory, and all of us that love Joe Rogan
Oh,
and
yeah, of
stuff,
course,
right?
yeah.
Right. And the stoned ape theory was kind of that thing with psilocybin mushrooms, where the evolution of the human started as in the ape, and the quick change in our brain size from that primate type being to the next step, that jump. A lot of people think that happened because these primate beings were eating psilocybin mushrooms while they were foraging and whatnot. And the psilocybin mushrooms did exactly that, what the CBD and the THC and this cannabis is doing now. It created those pathways, and it made us, our brain double in size, if I remember
Sure,
correctly.
yeah, it would be very mind-expanding.
And if that's happening now with the marijuana, and it was meant to happen, and we stopped it, we kind of literally slowed our evolution.
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting theory. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree that there's a possibility of that. I mean, when you have parts of your brain that you don't use it, you lose it, man. So
Yeah.
people need something to stimulate their day. Let's be honest. People take caffeine. They're always having coffee all the
Alcohol.
time. Alcohol, exactly.
Sugar.
Lots of things.
Just
but-
really quick, I want to talk about what you were saying about that stoppage. But really quick, just the reason why I was asking you those questions is so when you combine CBD and THC, they call it the entourage effect.
Well, any cannabinoids combining together can actually make a larger synthesis effect.
Yeah.
So you're talking about sometimes 1 + 1 = 5.
So when
kind of
some people use
situation.
CBDs and they use CBDs without THC, but it's better to mix it with THC, isn't it?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I enjoy CBD a whole lot. I mean, it does its job. It does a great job.
You mean without THC or?
Oh no, I like them together
Yeah,
usually.
it's combined,
but,
yeah.
but like a more recommended thing would be to kind of warm up to THC first. Don't just blow right into that, because I
Mhm.
mean I think people's fascination with THC just comes from the fact that we have we recognize the fact that we need something on our receptor.
Yes.
And so when people experience THC, it's outward, it's euphoric, it's very pronounced. There's different ways to have the THC with the terpene along with it. There's many essential oils that are carried in cannabis. I think it's like 111 on
Oh yeah,
on
this plant
average.
is beyond magical. I mean,
Yeah.
the uses of this plant, and that's another thing that really angers me, is that this plant we can grow. Maybe this is the
Yeah,
whole.
it's a
this
fucking plant.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
whole probably the
Fuck.
whole reason why we're at. I know I get
It's
a little
from
deep into
Mars.
conspiracy theory, right? But let's be honest. This plant we can grow ourselves,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and when we grow it ourselves, we take them out of the triangle, right?
Well, that's a segue into the
and the states need
stoppage.
it.
I want to talk
The states
about
need the
that.
money. Everybody knows that right now.
So why did marijuana? Well, actually, you said it was with us for 12,000 years. Name all the benefits that it's had for those people, even 12,000 years ago, all the way leading up to like why was it stopped and slowed down?
Oh, okay. Well, you know, the benefits initially, they're not very well recorded, obviously, way back in time.
But I'm talking maybe like even with George Washington era and things like that.
Oh yeah,
you know
hemp
what I
was
mean?
a was
Like
a
hemp.
It was a
major-
cash crop
more
for
so hemp.
textile.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was more of a cash crop for
Yeah, yeah.
textile for a long time. But people did smoke it, and they did enjoy it recreationally, as people would say, or medicinally by using it with alcohol, making salves, rubbing it in their
Yes.
legs. You know, it's a very common thing to
Yeah.
have access to at least somewhat decent alcohol to use as a carrier.
And they can go all the way back to the Egyptians and the Sumerians and
Making
and,
salves.
and a lot of these first civilizations out of the Mesopotamia area that chronicle their use of the cannabis plant.
Right, yeah. The seeds have been found in tombs. There's like, tons of
Oh,
you know,
really?
places. Yeah,
Oh, I
they've
didn't know
actually
that.
found seeds out
Well, why
there.
did the
Holy
salve
shit.
go away? Like, why did it just come back like just a couple years ago?
Well, I'll tell you why it went away, and Tyler,
You know, and the
might
tincture
agree with
and all
me.
that.
Yeah.
Well, the Stamp Act of 1937, we can go
The
right
Reefer Madness era.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go into that.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
Well, I'm
I know,
learning
I couldn't
a
wait
lot.
to talk
I'm
about
telling you,
that.
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you got William
Have you seen Reefer
Randolph
Madness,
Hearst.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got William Randolph Hearst that ran a bunch of things.
You were dropping knowledge bombs on this.
Everybody
at the
was,
party.
kind of scratching each other's backs just like they do nowadays. And then we had this issue of, we have this huge crop, and it's going to take out possibly the cotton industry, possibly paper industry. You know, many other things were threatened at the time. So all these big businessmen got together, created a huge propagandist movement that many people are aware of nowadays, and
William Randolph Hearst being the leader of the pack. because
newspapers. He owned
was
all the
gonna-
newspapers.
Yeah, he was going to
So-
lose a ton of money. I mean, just think about somebody like Steve Jobs when the iPhone was at its greatest. If somebody came along and said, not only are we going to jump in there, but we're going to make the iPhone obsolete.
Why would he lose money though?
Because he's not going to be able to make any money off the so if
'Cause he'd
you-
be obsolete.
If you own every newspaper in the United States, okay, every newspaper, and then you own the industry where they make paper for the newspaper, think if somebody came along and said, "Hey, hemp is cheaper, it's better for the environment, and
And it does a million other things.
It lasts longer than paper." Hearst is screwed.
Yeah.
He doesn't have
He just lost a lot of good friends that he just did business with
Yes.
for a long time.
a long time,
Long
including the government.
Right, exactly. There was taxes built on everything. So essentially, back to the Stamp Tax Act, they issued these weird-looking little stamps that if you still wanted to buy cannabis, you could. But the problem was, there's these big red stamps. I think there was a few different colors for different
that'd be
states.
sick collectibles.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can
To
find
get those
them.
stamps.
you can find them online still. Yeah,
Dude, I
Like
want
eBay
one.
or something.
Yeah, I want one
Yeah.
of those.
If
That'd be
I remember
bad. We don't need
correctly-
one for the
Frame it out
podcast.
there.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
yeah.
If I remember correctly, they did a lot of things. You could find those stamps on the like burlap bags that they used to package the hemp and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, they regulated it like that for
Yeah.
a little while, so that would be even rarer because that was during the time when they stopped issuing the stamps.
Ah.
You see, that was the idea: is that you have to have a stamp to do this, but we're not going to give them out anymore.
Oh,
And that's how you kill it. So I think it was by 1938, I believe,
Yes.
it was like out. It's like
Yeah.
a residual. You just sort of after that.
And along with that, at the same time, he's hitting them on multiple fronts. And in every newspaper around the country, he's telling them, you will write a story about either Mexicans,
right, exactly.
other minorities,
It's very
the
racist usually.
southern black population, and we're going to say that the black population in the South and the Mexicans coming up and migrant workers are bringing this crazy plant drug, and they're
Right.
smoking it or
And
using
they changed the name of it
Yeah, to
because they used to call it cannabis, and then
Yes.
they went marijuana with the H in
Yes.
there, like as in sort of south of the border term.
which
Oh,
meant
yeah.
like
They
the,
brought in, just to spell it like they would out there. But
That's
it's a
ridiculous.
bastardized term. Cannabis is what I prefer.
And
better,
when
you know?
when these people, and they would say in these stories in the newspaper, these men are coming up, these black people in the South, Mexicans in the Southwest, they're smoking this crazy plant and they're raping our white
They're getting
women
crazy.
and daughters and wives.
attacking people,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
And so he's hitting
it was
them
very
on multiple
prejudiced.
fronts, right? And so you got people who just are so ignorant to the fact that they have their newspaper where they got all their information from.
That they
back
trust
then,
every
that
day.
they trust.
Yeah, they do.
Like our doctors,
Right.
Our doctors feeding us these OxyContin because we trust them, right? Our government feeding us these lies about this plant causing the rape of our white women, right?
Right. It's something terrible.
It is.
Very prejudiced. That whole
it was
propagandist
terrible,
movement
yeah.
is insane. Yeah.
And I really think it led to the slowdown of the equality in this country. I mean,
absolutely.
big time. So
it certainly didn't help.
No,
man,
no.
that was terrible.
Yes.
Those old propagandist films are horrible. I went through and watched them, and then all the different views that were put out in the papers that you're talking about. I've gone through and looked at some of those, and I thought that was insane.
What are some other good propaganda films to watch besides Reefer Madness?
Oh,
there's all kinds of them, but
yeah, there's one actually called Marijuana with the H. I've seen that one. I've seen there's a couple other ones. There was a couple that were during the Reaganomics time that we could go into next if you want. I mean,
well, I think that was another big deal because
but it took a while to figure out who was funding what.
Yes.
Because they would funnel themselves down through different companies, different things, and then you would find out, 3 ways to Sunday that this guy just backed this. But you wouldn't always know. It's always been a big political game.
It's the big
drug
boys
war.
club, right?
Yeah, of course, because they make a lot of money off of it.
Yes.
They only make a lot of money putting people in jail.
Yeah.
People know that. People know that the prison is a business.
Yeah. And on top of it, you're dealing with these guys, these leaders of these little guerrilla groups throughout all of South America, right? And you're dealing with them, but they're the bad guys, right? But you have to deal with them because they're on the winning side of the communism thing, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Nationalism is a huge seller out here, of course.
So how do you tell those guys to trust you? Well, you let them start bringing in some drugs to sell, right? And then you let them start making money off of cocaine and then crack and that type of stuff. And that was definitely a CIA-funded operation. Yeah,
and actually all of those things were medicinalized here at one time in this country anyway.
Isn't that amazing?
So
isn't that amazing?
The idea that you take it away, you give the business to someone else where there's already demand in your own country, all of those things should be, medicinalized, studied.
Yes.
Let's use the things that we know work for what they work for.
Yes.
Let's not just throw all the money to a bunch of cartels or whatever's happening. I think it's really crazy that we couldn't do more for our people in this country.
Yeah. It's just easier to blame it on.
Yes.
It's just another political move. It's just another prejudice, something to bring up that can divide people enough to where they can win in a game.
And then slowly the internet era happened, right?
Mass communication now. We didn't have to wait for a phone call anymore. We didn't have to wait for, any sort of letter that could take weeks or a month to get somewhere, Radio wasn't as fast as it once was. Television isn't as fast as it once was. Yeah. So, I mean, higher bandwidths, more information out there, it's great. People are
more
actually able to
information
understand.
Is always better. Always better.
Right,
you find the real truth.
The country just felt like it was in an iron curtain situation, like they referred to, long ago. But I feel like informationally we've been this way for a long time, and we're just having this sort of awakening, and it's really really enjoyable to see it happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that those guys deserve it. It's been 70 years now, Prohibition. 70 something. Yeah. So it's terrible. That's just not right. When people need something, that they deserve to have it.
Yeah. And I think the amazing thing, especially about marijuana the cannabis industry, and I say industry, and I don't mean money industry. When I say industry, I mean the community around the medical cannabis industry and everything like that, right? So that community obviously is showing, hey, this is what we're about. We're not, we're about telling people what really is going on out there. So it's one of the great things is being able to do this right here.
Absolutely,
this podcast.
It's really important. I think more people should know more about at least as much as there is to know. We're just on the cusp of this thing. It's like an iceberg sitting there, and we only see the top of it.
So tell us some of that stuff that maybe a lot of people don't know about that's coming.
Coming. Oh, wow.
New finds, because I hear they're finding, like you said, they're finding new cannabinoid receptors every day, right?
Well, we still have the two, but the cannabinoids that would bond with them are the ones being discovered right now, which is really awesome. I mean, I've seen mapped out over 67 different cannabinoids. And like I say, like 130 plus are known right now. So each one of those is going to have different effects. But the trick is to trick the plant into growing those cannabinoids more predominantly so we can test them more in a larger amount. Like, for example, if you were to grow some flower, generally going to be THC dominant. Okay, well, we have to take and manipulate the enzymes in the plants so that they grow a different cannabinoid rather than the initial one, which is what the guys
Can I check that out?
guys up in Colorado.
Flower?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there you
Is it a
go.
little
So
loaded bomb?
when
Oh,
he's
yeah, go
talking
ahead.
about flower, for the people out there that might not know, I know this is
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of
that's
silly.
kind of a new term, huh?
It
Flower,
is.
it
I
is
remember I
usually
probably heard that like 3 years
like
ago. and I was
pot
like,
or
but
something,
now
you
it's
know,
like I
those
say it
old
all the
names.
time, flower. But
And-
I'm
and
never
I'm-
going to say marijuana again. I'm only going to say cannabis.
Cannabis,
so-
it is proper because
I forgot about that.
I just say MJ.
MMJ. That's a good,
Yeah. And so for the people that don't know, when they say flower, they mean the actual herb, the product
Damn.
from the female plant.
Yes, the female.
The female plant that creates, that gives us the THC content, right?
Exactly. Or whatever cannabinoid can be produced.
So are
that's-
CBDs produced in any other part of the plant, or just the
it'll-
flower?
It'll be no, it'll be in the flower. I mean, I have seen where the stem will carry quite a bit, but for the most part, you can have it. There's different spots in the plant, like but for the most part, it'll just be in the actual trichomes.
Yes, which
actual
are on
trichomes.
what people call the buds.
The
right?
frosty,
Yes,
sort of
yes.
milky white when they're set properly. Most cannabinoids store up in there.
Yes.
And then also there's the pistils as well that come up. Those will usually carry a lot of the terpenoids, flavonoids, things like that. But also there are large amounts at times carried in that area of cannabinoid content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that's you kind of touched on real quick was how you are forcing the plant now to produce certain things, and that's something that's very amazing to me. When we were in high school, and we all kind of got introduced to cannabis. Back then, what we were getting was ridiculously low quality compared to what we
Right.
think about it now, right?
stuff.
For sure.
And
What'd you say?
The cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the cheap stuff.
and literally we don't see that stuff anymore. I mean, I can't think of the last time that I've had a friend or somebody I know talk
Uba
about.
smoked a bowl with me of swag about a year ago at the grotto. We can edit that part
and,
out.
and the reason
Sorry.
the reason we don't see it is because they've manipulated these plants to grow better product.
Well, I think people, what it is more of a research aspect.
Yes.
A lot of people are understanding where the original genetics of plants come from, and so they emulate the environment for them to grow better wherever. And then, they take that and build that together. When they hybridize, they bring plants together. They're looking at where the parents came from, what's going on, and they're able to emulate an environment better for them to thrive. So you're not seeing that stringy, nasty, old brown stuff anymore. You're seeing this filled out big bud that's not generally sinsemilla, which is a term meaning no seeds. So when
What was
people,
that again?
Sinsemilla?
Seen some Mia.
Yeah, in Spanish this means no seeds.
Yeah.
or no
Yeah,
seeds, or Latin.
you've heard
yeah.
it before. Sensimilla.
Sen-
Sensimilla.
probably
have.
Yeah. And that's actually an old term that they would say, get
Or sinsemilla too.
yeah,
I've heard
yeah,
it like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was back in the day that there's a couple types of strands that we were told were strands, right? And sensimilla was one of them, right? But it was just a term for no seed.
It
Oh, I
is.
remember that.
It's like chronic or anything else,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Chronic,
more
yeah.
scientific.
Yeah.
But the name did spread. I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like me and my friends would all chip in like $5 to buy like a $20 gram because we'd always have swag and be like, let's get this. We'll get some
Yeah.
$20 gram of dank, and then we just try. You know what I mean? Like
You'd hear.
transitioning from the swag to the better weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember the first time.
But back then there was still no science like it is now. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I think
it was happening, but it was
well, it's happening,
in
but in
little
people's
clumps.
backyards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there
um,
was like just dudes killing it in their backyard.
Yeah,
with that shit.
shout out to the Humboldt Cure. One of our good friends, family comes from the California area that they're up there growing some, and they've been growing for a long time, for decades. Some of the best weed or cannabis that this country has seen, and it's a perfect example of what you're saying. The area up there, they call it the Emerald Triangle. The
Absolutely.
Mendocino,
Humboldt,
County,
Mendocino, San Fernando. Yeah, exactly.
And they call that the Emerald Triangle because it's a perfect
Environment.
environment for this plant to grow.
The soil
Yeah.
is awesome out there. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Just go outside,
But
right?
also in that case, the genetics have been out there for 60 years. People have been growing out there, so they are acclimatized to that environment.
Yes, they are.
So if you're going to bring something from outside, you got to kind of adjust your environment first. But outdoor grows are amazing there for
Yes, they
local
are.
genetics because they've had so long to be deeply rooted in that
Yes.
community.
And it's amazing how important that is. The finding the original way these plants, came to us and how they started.
Right, and you just want them to grow their best.
Yes.
So that's
From
the idea. And
Mars.
whatever environment you can replicate, whatever you can do like that, that will produce something closer to what we would know as a high quality variant of
Yeah.
cannabis. Yeah.
And okay, so you've worked
That's
in
the only place that I can get the main ingredient for Humboldt County Hydro Chamber Bud Primo.
yeah. Wow.
But just really quick, you said you were 27 when you first
I believe
experienced
so.
it, but I was
yeah.
wondering, what was your first experience? Smoke, tincture?
I smoked it.
You smoked it?
Skywalker OG.
Oh,
Skywalker.
word.
I remember that. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Now, you know how everyone says, like, is it true, like, you don't get high the first time or whatever? Did you get high the first time?
I definitely had the experience of the onset of THC. I definitely
Yeah.
did, but it was an indica leaning, so I kind of had a little time
But
where I went to take a nap later.
You've heard that before, though, right?
Oh, absolutely,
Like,
yeah.
people are like, I didn't get high the first time.
Right.
Well, you don't really
I did.
realize what you're feeling until you reflect on the experience. Usually, whenever I hear someone say that, generally it's just, oh, I didn't realize it because a day later I felt completely different, or something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, you kind of notice what the effect was by reflecting on it generally. So I don't always believe that when people say that.
So when
they
you
just don't know what to recognize out of the experience yet. They're usually very new to it, I think.
Tyler, so real quick, I have to clarify. So when you first smoked, it wasn't for pleasure. It was actually for pain.
Pain, yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
But then you laughed your ass off. You're like, this is awesome!
Oh,
you laughed his ass off for 5 hours.
He was like, what?
He was like,
No. I just had to point that out.
Well,
because
thanks, yeah.
you never ever smoked if it was, it was strictly for pain.
So what did it do to your pain? I mean, were you in pain when you first tried it? And
I did.
It,
I was.
Did it relieve it?
Well, I felt the immediate stress lift
After you were
because I
laughing?
had so much stress and depression going on in my life at the time.
It is.
That when I felt that elevate, I knew right away something was happening.
Yes.
And then by the time I realized what was going on, I didn't feel any sharp pains in my feet anymore.
Wow.
So yeah,
That is a great way to put that. The lift. It's like a lift.
it's a THC push.
Yes.
Is what most people that review
Yes.
call it.
Did you
know,
tell
that-
your doctors that you tried that?
I did. Yeah, and they were fine with it. Yeah.
They said
so-
continue?
Yeah.
Wow,
They said if
that's
it's
great.
working for me, then
but his insurance dropped him.
yeah.
No, I mean, I haven't had to do many checkups. I don't have any grinding or anything going on. So the amount of I'll get on it here in a second.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's pretty cool. I was thinking about that the whole time, and I actually
Well, it's a
had to
great
point that
question.
out.
I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the most part, I did notice the change very quickly. I did recognize something was happening and how it was going to possibly benefit me. But I didn't realize the process of getting used to cannabis, and more importantly, when people refer to cannabis, they're just talking about THC. Like
Yes.
I said, the experience. There's many other cannabinoids to experience out there. There are
Yeah.
like CBG and other ones. CBG is a parent cannabinoid.
Actually, I would love for you to talk about CBDs, but I definitely want you to talk about CBNs because
CBN.
you were dropping some CBN knowledge I never heard before, and I was
Right.
like, what the fuck? But at that point, I was about 5 drinks deep at your brother's get-together, so I actually wanted you to come on the podcast and talk about it
if we want
again.
to touch on CBN, I can jump right on it and we can come back to whatever other questions.
For sure,
about
yeah,
THC.
yeah.
Okay.
Just- yeah, man.
I think
Fuck
it's
yeah.
amazing that now that we're able to study this plant. One thing that I want to mention real quick is when this plant was quote unquote outlawed, right? Not even the medical community or the educational community could study this plant to find out what benefits it had.
Absolutely.
And I think there was only one accredited place that was able to study cannabis, and what they were able to get was some of the lowest quality flower that was able to be produced. So they couldn't even find anything.
I believe that would be the farms that they have for the government
Yes.
that's been growing in Tennessee, I believe, is where that would be located. Yeah.
And now that we look back at it, and hindsight is 2020. I mean, it was so silly not to be able to be studying this.
Yeah.
So
So going on to, we were talking about CBN. CBN is a really cool cannabinoid that actually comes from oxygenation, overly oxygenating THC. So allowing it to age or to cure longer. In a dark place is usually what I do. I'll take like a small jar. I prefer the ceramic ones because they stay cooler and, keep the light away from it. You'll have terpene retention then. You won't have terpene loss during the oxygenation process. But just simply allowing your cannabis to rest up for 6 to 9 months or longer.
It's like wine.
So
right?
can you explain first of all, explain what a terpene is and explain what's happening over this process? And it is like wine. Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah, terpenes. Terpenes are the flavonoids or flavorings, the essential oils that would be found in there. A terpenoid is with the terpene is with hydrocarbon. So you have carbon, and then you have H2O, or water. So as those things lift, okay, you have an oxidation process that can happen to them as well. So keeping them in a dark place actually helps in that situation. But the terpene is something that actually can influence the effect of cannabis. It actually, each of those essential oils can be found in many other things, like lavender is linalool, pinene is pine needles, pine bark. They can be found other places, and they have their own special effects.
And those have been used in the medical community for ages, for
a very long time.
I mean, even at our evolution, just like the cannabis plant, they were using those plants.
Absolutely.
That's where we get that from. So
yeah. They're found a lot of places for different remedies, exactly. But the plant produces a great biochemistry for that sort of thing. So you have this synergy taking place between its derivative terpene and the cannabinoids bonding during the bonding process.
You're talking about over time?
Well, I mean, like when you're inhaling and when you're using it. Yeah, when you're
it.
actually using it, the effect is a fantastic one along with the original biochemistry of the plant. And I really enjoy some of the newer companies out there that are taking and using botanically driven terpenes and adding them with THC. I think that's cool, but that's not my thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak against everybody's product or anything, but I like the original biochemistry of the plant. It knows where to go. It knows how to bond. Don't change it. You leave it a fuller spectrum, meaning any other cannabinoids that, because our testing processes aren't exactly great right now. I mean, people can afford what they can. The spectrometry that they use to test this stuff, it's just not as accurate. So I think, and that's my personal opinion, I don't think it's very accurate. It's accurate to a degree. It's going to show you what's more populent in there, but it's probably missing a ton of different cannabinoids that people are getting confused with other cannabinoids, like THC, because there's like 8 different versions of that. THC, sure. There's many offshoots, like THCV, for example, many other things.
The CBN's really quick.
But back to the CBN,
So, I forgot my fucking question now. I'm fucking stoned.
That's all right, man.
Are CBNs equally in sativa and indica?
Yes.
That's a great question.
It's just due to the breakdown of the THC. It converts. So let's say you have like a 28% bud that and you have a pretty reputable source on that.
Which 28% of THC, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So over time, the THC percentage goes up?
No. It converts. So let's say if you have 28% in there, you can eventually convert that over a year or longer to make sure that nothing else is in there through the aging process, and that will become your CBN.
Wow.
It will be somewhere in that range.
Wow.
Yeah, you can actually oxidize it enough to convert the entire amount.
And so what are some of the things that CBN's doing in humans?
Oh, it's amazing. It's one of the more narcotic, sort of really heavy relaxative, like relaxation constantly. It's more of a body influence. It doesn't really matter what you started out with your plant as, sativa, indica, or whatever. You're still going to get this enormous body influence.
Wow. So for pain.
It's huge for me. It helps me all the time.
I just have to fucking take a wrap it up, put it in a dark spot, pull it out a year later?
Yep.
Is there a difference between if I pull it out a year later to 10 years later?
I'm not sure.
I don't know if
is there enough time? So, yeah, because it's so new. Is there a time? Is there a time frame, or that's kind of, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Or 100 years? Or?
I'm not really sure how it degrades over that long because I never keep it around long enough.
Right.
It's funny because when I was in LA, my buddy he's like, oh my god, I found this little stash of weed, and he said it had to have been 5 years old, but he was like. He thought it was so disgusting. He was tired of shit, I bet. But I was like, I brought up what you told me. I was like, no, it's probably awesome. There's CBNs in it. And he I was trying to sound all cool, like I knew new shit. And
I know that THC can degrade. I have heard over a certain period of time anyway with the integrity of the plant. But, as far as aging goes, I imagine you could age it for many years if you wanted to, as long as you had a
Does it
decent
matter?
environment.
I got a piss.
Yeah, almost like a. And here's one of the things. I mean, this is a plant, guys. I mean, it's gonna degrade. It's gonna.
It's gonna crumble and stuff like that.
But you can probably can you take the whatever it is that you're putting away for a while? Does it have to be flour? Can it be a concentrate? Can it be?
The issue with that is it's hard for the oxygen to penetrate. So I think the better converting rate that I've seen, it always comes from flour. I mean, I know that it just depends, because when an oil is sealed up like that, it's not receiving very much oxygen.
Yes.
So it will degrade. It will degrade by a certain degree.
What about
not
keeping the
much.
flour in like a vacuum type environment? Would that help even more?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Because at that point, it's degrading less.
right. But every once in a while, visiting it, maybe not just leaving it away forever. But
Well, here's the problem with the vacuum, right? There's no oxygen in a vacuum.
Right, that would be an issue. So
Yeah.
every once in a while, checking on the plant, whatever you put away, your flour, you can also rehydrate it along the way if you want. I tend to
Could
do
you
it.
leave it in those, or does it matter what you pack it in, like a
Bio
burlap
bags,
sack
bio
or
bags, I don't
clear
like
bags?
because they light the light. They let the light in. So I prefer like a ceramic, really nice, latch top jar or something.
Yeah,
Something
mason
dark?
jar maybe.
Mason jars are cool as long as they're incredibly dark. If you get a black or one or something like that,
Yeah,
I think that would
tinted
work
one.
way better.
Yeah.
Tinted, I'm still not a fan of it because
Got
I've
you.
seen in some of my cures the loss, and you'll actually see the buds start to turn yellow and things like that. And it's, if you're a person who likes to smoke or
That
if you
likes the flavor and everything.
right, if you want to retain the terpene, because the terpene dies first.
Yeah.
I have noticed due to light degradation solely.
I
I've
think
noticed
that's
with that.
that's something that I'd like to touch on real quick. With some of my good friends who use marijuana or cannabis on a regular basis, one of the things that they love is they've almost become like wine connoisseurs with it, where they love different strains, they love the taste, they love the smell, they love everything about it, the whole process about it. You kind of become, and I don't want to call it like the wine snob type thing, but it almost becomes
I don't give a shit.
this. Yeah, right.
I'll smoke whatever.
Can-
I'll smoke
connoisseurs,
fucking I'll smoke resin if
yeah,
I'm out.
calling
I don't give a fuck.
And I think that community has also become very interesting to watch how that works. People saving different types. And you were talking about your cures. Do you cure different types, and do you have it set up to many different types of cures over time?
Yeah, I will put them back. Usually, if I'm doing a cure, I'll set maybe 4 or 5 strains back, at least 2 that I really, really depend on.
Yes.
And the effects along with the experience of aging, I mean, you're basically, when you start out with a sativa, if it's a really, really gritty, strong, very euphoric, very, very heady strain, it'll be a hybrid by the time it hits 6 to 9 months.
That's amazing.
And its sort of effect. Because you're replacing a lot of the THC with the CBN. So you can have this very euphoric experience with a huge body high. And that's one of my more like, I'm going to get something done tonight, but I still want something.
So let's talk about that real quick, because there's a lot of people that don't know that also. The difference between, so cannabis, the cannabis has 2 types of I don't know if you would call them strands. What would you call it? This cannabis, the indica and the sativa. What?
Sativas for pussies.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that because
I wish Chris Belanzi was here. Shout out to Chris Belanzi. Sativas. I wish you were here for
Chris
your
Belanzi.
Sativas for
I
pussies
even have a
rant.
sativa
Yeah,
shirt
I was
on.
just gonna ask you, lemon haze. You gotta.
Lemon
I
haze.
know you're wearing the shirt, so
Oh,
you
shit.
must be promoting it. So.
I love the lemon strain, so I wanted to
Right.
wear this shirt.
Yeah,
I'm just playing. I was just playing.
So
Bunk
sativa has more of an energetic type, get your day done type of stuff.
Really
It's-
quick onset too.
Yes.
Usually, some indicas can take 15, 20 minutes to fully ingest. It feels like just the way the uptake is.
Yes.
But sativas can be very strong, euphoric, but you're not going to feel a lot of body high.
Yeah.
But it does help a lot with arthritis.
Yes.
Things like that. In your joints and stuff.
Any type of cannabis will. The derivatives from the cannabis plant will help with inflammation. The majority of them, right? I mean, that's,
yeah, of course.
I mean,
Yeah.
I keep on, changing the topics here, but with inflammation, most of the problems that we have as humans with our body is caused by inflammation. And people don't realize that. That's a lot of the major diseases, when your body is inflamed in
Is
certain areas.
restricted in that way.
Yes.
Yeah, toward the level of inflammation.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it's kind of like a fire being set off, and they have to go put that out. Your body's sending ways to stop that inflammation, and so one of the best anti-inflammatories is the cannabis plant is THC, CBD, all those things help with inflammation.
It has been proven.
Yes. And that's why another thing that this is so important is I've heard people talk about, if we can stop inflammation, it's almost like an anti-aging type thing. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know about that, but obviously we'll be a lot better off.
Yeah.
But we have other things we've got to look at too, like the amount of sodium intake that we have nowadays. I mean, like I think that's gone up. I saw a statistic on that. Like I think the last 20 years, it's gone way up. Like in our average meal consumption, the amount of sodium is insane. There's many other things there. Sugar is a big one nowadays, but definitely cannabis can steer someone on the right track, can help them a lot, can really be a beneficial supplement, whatever cannabinoid you're seeking.
Just really quick, I know you told this on the last podcast, McClay, but just so Tyler knows, can you tell your experience with marijuana with your brother and everything? Because I think it's a great story.
I was actually talking to, I'm glad you brought this up, I was talking to a medical marijuana doctor the other day, and I was telling him this story because I think it's something that these doctors and a lot of people out there need to talk about with people, so people hear things like this, and I'm glad I'm able to tell this. I'll tell it as many times as I can on the show, and I know people hate hearing it over and over, but my brother was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer called osteosarcoma 3 years ago now, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, the story is pretty amazing. Very rare form of cancer. Like 1% of people that get, or 10% of people that get cancer, they get a sarcoma, and then 1% of those 10% get osteosarcoma, if I'm correct. I believe that's what it is. So it's very rare. So at the time, the Mayo Clinic here was like, we want him down here, right? We want to work on him, which is a good thing and a bad thing, but it was a good thing, for us because we were pretty bummed out. And so he went down there and he had a 9-inch tumor in his femur and his 8-inch tumor in his femur and his thigh, right? And the marrow of his thigh and his femur, I mean. And so they had to shrink the tumor to 80% or shrink it down at least 20% in order to do the surgery to remove the femur safely. That way the cancer doesn't spread through the body.
Sure, yeah. So
they said, okay, he's going to have to go through a very intense chemo regimen for, a year basically, which was beyond intense. It was 4 days in the Mayo inpatient, 4 days, then like 3 days off, then like 10 days, 6 days off. And that just kept going back to 4 days, back to, and at the point of about 6 months, I'd say he was pretty close to death. The chemo had ravaged him. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't drinking anything in weeks. Even the smallest bit of drops of water would just be terrible for him.
Make him sick, huh?
Yeah, and not just sick. I mean, you're so weak at that point, and it was scary. And I kind of get choked up talking about this sometimes because there's a really good friend that we had in the medical marijuana industry here in the Valley. And shout out to Ian Soggy, our friend Soggy. Yes. As people know him in the medical industry, he literally saved my brother's life. He came to us and said, "Hey, let me help." And what he was doing at the time was he was helping children who were dealing with cancer and their families. Amazing. And he was creating concentrate oils. And he came to us and said, "Hey, the chemo wasn't working. It wasn't shrinking it fast enough." And he said, "Cannabis will shrink that tumor. Just let me help. It'll help him with his, everything along the process. You don't have to stop the chemo if you don't want to. You can continue using, but this will help." Right. So he talked us into, letting him help, and he gave him 200 milligram concentrate pills 4 times a day, 800 milligrams a day. Literally. The story I like to tell is my brother was a smoker, and obviously he had to quit at that time. And all he wanted was a pack of cigarettes, right? And at this time, we couldn't get him even to take, pain medication because he'd get so violently ill, and it just really hurt him bad, And so I came to grab him and said, "Hey," and he was bad. And I said, "Chris, I need you to take a pill for me." And I mean, the answer was basically no, not right now, I said, "I'll go get you a pack of cigarettes if you take this one pill."
Even though he knew it was cannabis?
Yeah. At that point,
was it a THC?
It was 100%. It was THC. RSO? Yeah. So at this point, even if you know something's, yes. Yeah. So this, I want to get into this after this. So even though at this point, when you know that something might help you, I think at this point, I know he might not want to admit it, but he was kind of getting to that point where he was getting close to calling it. Like you
Damn,
get to
I
that
didn't
point.
even
You
know
never want to hear that.
Yeah. So it was scary, but again, I got there just in time, and Ian really, I mean,
He was an
guardian
angel.
It's the best way to put it.
I'm
You
glad
said
to
the
hear
same
that
thing.
someone was
Yeah.
able to be there.
And so I got the first pills, and I went to him, and I said, Chris, just let me give you this one pill. And I said, I'll go get you a pack of cigarettes. You just take it. He agreed. Got him to take the pill. I went to go get the cigarettes. Took me about, like 45 minutes to come back. And I get back, and it's the first time he's gotten out of bed in weeks. And he's on the couch, and he's literally eating a bowl of, mushed up, like chicken
that's
enchiladas,
amazing.
right? His color had come back within an hour. I mean, it was like the hand of God had kind of just touched him, said,
Well, Ian
All right.
Ian was part of like
Yes,
God and handed him
yes.
this fucking thing from
Yes.
Earth.
That's
and,
amazing.
And within a couple of months, the
Oh shit, it's all good.
Within a couple of months, the tumor had shrunk down small enough to do the surgery, and my brother is alive today because of the medical marijuana. The doctor said that to
That's
him.
amazing, man.
Yes,
It's amazing.
And seriously, I know. Hopefully, one of these times, maybe we might be able to cut this up in a clip for Ian's daughter and son to see this, because
I think that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that story with me, man. That's
Ian passed away, and he saved a lot of people. He did. So thank you to his children. Thank you.
wow, that's amazing.
Want to take a
It's
break?
all good, man. No, we'll just write it out real quick. But just really quick, I mean, it was a good point that the other benefits that it gave him is that it made him hungry. It probably made him sleep more, so he's worried less. You know what I mean? He probably laughed and was happy. You know what I mean? It did all these other things. It wasn't just shrink the tumor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It like did all these other things that just uplifted his spirits. You know what I mean? And yeah, fucking.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
So this is an amazing thing, and thank you for doing what you do, man.
Oh,
This is
hey.
important, letting people know and working in the industry. And
I'm just trying to give back too.
Yeah.
I know it helped me, and I decided that I was going to jump on that industry. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's.
and
Wow.
we'd love to have you on. I mean, anytime something new pops up,
Oh yeah. I have tons of material. We can dig further into different histories.
Yeah.
I would love to talk more about new cannabinoids and
Yes.
how some of the newer ones are coming out that people can use.
And
too.
especially real quick, this stuff right here, Rick Simpson oil, for those
That's
of you
an
guys.
RSO right there.
You want to talk about that for a second, real quick?
Yes.
Sure, Rick Simpson oil. A lot of people are familiar with it for cancer treatment. That's
Yes.
one thing I was, wanted to bring it up. It's cool. It's one of those things that you can use alcohol. It's an alcohol extraction, and you take and basically sort of lift off most of the plant material there, and you end up with a fuller spectrum concentrate at the end of the deal there.
And it's literally almost just like a paste.
Right.
At a certain point, this paste can be.
Some of them are more hashier than others. There's many ways to make it,
Yes.
so I don't really want to pin the method down right away.
Yeah.
But it's one of the greatest things out there because people actually it'll be absorbed in your CB2 and your CB1. I like to use a method called tacking, where you clear off your gum and you kind of put a little bit up there, and then as time progresses, it'll kind of like slide off in your mouth with a couple drinks of water over time. And then you get it into your CB2 as well. So you're covering both receptors. It's a large amount of THC. So people that are using this sort of thing, there is 50-50 versions. There are many other different versions, some that are completely CBD dominant as well, that can actually help introduce someone into the THC thing, because CBD actually helps reduce some of the effects of THC euphoria. Someone getting used to taking something like this for cancer, for whatever, they want to kind of start small, but the recommended dose is 1 gram a day.
Yeah.
For I think 60 days.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to build up to that, or
What about somebody that maybe would just want to try and take this on a nightly basis? Like a half a grain half a piece of rice size amount.
I'm glad you brought up the rice amount. That
Yeah.
usually is the regular measuring point because it's so small.
Yes.
It would be a great idea. I mean, there's different versions out there. I would steer clear of the strain specific ones.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of them out there that are more hybridized,
Uh-huh.
so it can kind of help someone, you know, go to sleep at night, you know, having issues with anything. The onset takes a little longer, but like I said, the tacking method on the upper gum, just clear it off and then start like that. You'll get a lot better effect. You'll feel it within like maybe 8 minutes, something
Wow,
like that.
that's amazing.
Similar to smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 3 to 5 minutes of smoking, 8 minutes for that.
So Tyler, real quick, Keith's
and the
choice of
full onset takes a little longer, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Keith's choice of intake is suppository. So do those have more effect than any other intake?
But
Well, you know, suppository. I mean, they're
He's
getting
not
very
lying.
popular. Tommy
not
Chong.
lying.
Tommy Chong survived cancer
serious,
taking
I'm not lying.
suppositories.
Well, with prostate cancer, right?
Right, exactly. Tommy Chong.
oh, really? Wow.
Tommy Chong. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's many other people that benefit from getting the medicine close to where the issues could be is a very good idea. Suppositories are very good.
Actually, really quick, I wanted to ask, like, giving it to dogs. Is that too much, or products and the benefits for dogs and stuff?
Well, I have seen things for dogs that I guess it's very good for them to have CBD. I'm not sure about THC yet. We did have a very old dog that I did give some straight THC,
Yeah.
RSO2, and he was doing a lot better
I've
the next
seen-
day after
yeah.
a nap. But I made sure not to give him too much.
Yeah.
So I can't really recommend that. But you know, people, hey, you know.
But there
Well-
are products for dogs out there. Do you know a lot about
Exactly.
that you can talk about, or is that?
Biscuits, stuff like that. There is like a mix that you can put in their food. It's like a powdery thing, so they can kind of put it in whatever you'd like. And they are smaller doses, like 5 to 15 milligrams or something like that.
But why would you want to give, for people who don't know, CBDs and things to
arthritis.
their dogs?
You know, dogs get terrible hips. You know, that usually their hips will be the first to wear out, and so like that can elongate a dog's life for sure.
I fully believe that.
Help rebuild the collagen and everything that's falling apart inside. You know, you can help rebuild with.
And not
CBD
only
like
that, I mean, a lot of people, the dogs are living in the same environments that we're living in, and some
Realm.
of the in the same environment we're living in, where we're getting cancer more. Dogs are getting cancer more. You know, tumors or different types of cancer, and this affects them the same way.
Well, and also too, if you can use it topically, it can help a lot too. You know, like if there's a dog with a tumor on his leg or something like that.
Yeah.
I've even seen research done where they did it. They actually put cannabis oil on a dolphin and helped it with a tumor.
Wow.
So, and it was inside of its mouth too.
Wow.
It had it's part of its face and everything was really
That's
bad.
interesting.
The stuff is used too for anxiety for animals too.
I wanted to bring
Exactly.
that up too. That, we
would be
didn't
the
talk
other
about
side
the
of it.
CBD for
Stress and
anxiety,
everything
like
like
that
that.
people don't know that. You know what I mean? That's a
Right,
huge
Andrew?
benefit.
It's definitely one of the strongest antipsychotics that I've seen in studies. I think it's number 2 in the world, if I remember right, known to man. And it's fantastic. If somebody is very anxious, you know, a very nervous person, I have a lot of problems with anxiety and depression. So when I figured out what CBD was about, I kind of, you know, was able to take a break there in a different way than a huge psychoactive effect, of THC or anything like that. There's a time and a place for everything, and CBD is fantastic for, you know, mental relief. For, you know, some people can get very jittery on large doses of CBD. I've noticed, just because of how focused you'll be on something, or it's very focusing, can be very relaxing. But also there can be terpenes added to it, different things that can actually change the experience a little bit. So
Yeah,
and that depends on the plant that it's derived from. A lot of CBD nowadays, if you see it on the open market, it'll be derived from what's known as a hemp plant. A lot of people refer to the smaller ruderalis as the hemp plant.
Yeah.
So that sort of CBD may not be as beneficial at times, because like some of the dosages can be kind of lighter than what can grow inside of the cannabis sativa or indica plant, you know. And there are many, many good THC CBD strains that are coming out in a 1-to-1 ratio, 3-to-2 ratio.
I think that's really good to know, because there's a lot of things on the market, even for dogs, that say hemp, based or whatever, and there's nothing that says the difference. It's on the same shelf right there with all the other stuff. You know what I mean? So actually, when you get the hemp, it almost sounds better. You know what I mean? When you get it.
I prefer the cannabis derived, but I mean, it is part of the same family, so it's going to be beneficial either way. You know, but I just prefer the actual whole plant. The ruderalis is a very small plant. You know, these smaller hemp plants, generally, maybe not even 5% CBD content. So, when you're looking at a plant, I've seen cannabis plants, cannabis indica grown out to 37%
Yeah.
CBD.
That's amazing.
Holy
And
shit.
maybe
Where do I get that at?
well, it was up north at High Mountain Health, but the original growers have left, so I don't know if they still have
Yeah.
that. It was a Harley Sue or Harley Quinn variant.
That's
I
amazing.
think it was Harley Sue. Yeah, and it was maybe, I don't know, like 3 to 5% THC. So the bud structure was completely different than what you would normally see out there. Like you have these sort of, kind of acorn-shaped buds or something. This was mostly leaf, and it was heavy with sap.
Wow.
Yeah, it looked very different than what you would see a THC dominant bud.
Holy shit.
Literally, the leaves were streaking the bags with resin. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, but it was just all the way the other direction instead of the THC.
So it
Came out kind of lanky looking, really different. Really kind
That's
of like they
amazing.
use the term larfy, kind of
Yeah.
like real leafy and kind of like stemmy and stuff. But
Yeah.
most of it was carried in the leaf. It did not produce the sort of bud that you would see there as in a regular flower.
It's
strain that
amazing
you
how
would
that
recognize.
works.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking crazy.
But yeah, back to the dogs. Though. Yeah, give them CBD. It'll be great for them.
yeah, I do.
Yeah, do it. Yeah,
I do
it's
for
a great
sure.
idea.
Yes.
Um,
Very cool.
So you're a sativa lemon guy. What's your preferred way of smoking? Do you like bongs, pipes, joints, blunts? Everyone's got their way,
I don't do blunts
Vaping.
anymore. But I enjoy all of the aspects. But my favorite right now is vaporization with a huge vaporizer. I really
have one
like
here?
that. I did
That you
not.
could
I
talk
did
about?
not
What
bring
do
one.
you use? Like the volcano type?
I have an herbalizer.
Okay.
Yeah, but right now the screens are clogged, so I've been kind of waiting on ordering new ones. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have an herbalizer. I'm not, I'll do a shout out to that company. That was designed by a NASA scientist, that vaporizer. So if you guys actually want to try out a vaporizer someday that's like that, I would definitely prefer that.
What's it called again?
Like,
The herbalizer.
herbalizer, yeah,
nice.
yeah, I would definitely head that direction because you can actually sort of control the activation rate of your cannabinoids and terpenes. So you can kind of influence the experience by how you vaporize with that thing, which is really cool. Really, really cool.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I usually I like to smoke bongs. I got a lot of bongs, so I like to smoke my bongs and just a little bit of everything. Every once in a while I have a joint. People like to have a
Change it
pre-roll.
up.
Yeah, but nowadays I'm trying to smoke a little less, and I'm kind of more moving towards the vaporization thing right now.
And I saw you taking this throughout the show. What is this right here?
That's a tincture. It's
Okay.
it's an indica-based tincture. That it's a really, really good one. I think it's a little bit of alcohol in it and stuff like that, but mostly that's full plant extraction right there on that thing. So they're not. It's still gonna look a little greenish, kind of whatever in
Yeah,
there
yeah.
because it's got chlorophyll, but that would be the entire biochemistry of a group of indica plants that they took and made a tincture.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
And tincture is something that you can use under your tongue or whatever and just hold it there for a little bit and then swallow it back.
And tincture has been part of the human evolution also. This is how a lot of
Huge.
medicine has been given to us throughout the ages. Basically what you're doing is you're soaking whatever plant or material. It's almost like that, right? It's like a soak type thing where it
Yeah,
extracts the chemicals in that plant or in that material into an alcohol-based type.
Just a separation of the plant material.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this wouldn't have any de-waxing process like some versions of shatter and other concentrates out there do.
Yeah.
This has the full spectrum of the plant. So yeah, and usually they're done. Some of them are cold pressed. They press them out. Some people do like a alcohol extraction with that, where you kind of just similar with the RSO. Yes,
Yes.
it can be a very similar process. Alcohol-based tinctures will be suspended and more alcohol-y, actually. It's a little bond in your mouth easier, but also it evaporates off, So some people don't want that alcohol sort of, kind of hashiness. So they're making them very differently. Some of them they have MCT oils in them, the multi-chain triglycerides that they're putting in there, or coconut oil or something like that to use it as a carrier to keep it in that state.
I'm a shatter guy. That's all I do. But
Shatters, yeah.
Is that good or is that beneficial?
Well, sometimes.
Can you actually talk about shatter a little bit and the difference between distillant and all that shit? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of long, but we can go over like
just
this
really
the
quick.
short
Yeah.
version, yeah.
Okay, well, shatters generally are butane extractions, propane. You can make them a few different ways, but generally it's the hard kind of version of the cannabis extract that you will see. Now, some of the things about that, there's a de-waxing process in there that when they blast, you can actually lose some integrity of the plant. that doesn't make it bad, because if you want to supplement more on THC, then that's fine. You're going to have more of that in there. And the rest of it that's holding it together in there is just the terpene that you're looking at. So that'll change the color of it a little bit or whatever, because the THC will crystallize. If it's full on THC, like a THC isolate, it'll just be a crystal in there. So
do you lose a lot of the benefits
with
shatter?
I think
like
some of
the
the extraction processes can be really heavy, and some of them are better. So it just depends on how people run their things. I believe it's still a pretty decent way to medicate.
It's when you're buying those cheap ass grams, dude. It's fucking for sure.
Well, in the purging
they
process,
don't give a fuck how
the purging process is
those,
huge.
bro, for sure. That's why all the other ones are more expensive.
You don't want to buy dirty wax. Everybody knows that. The purging process is huge.
You're
but
fucked.
just make sure you go to a reputable source, though, for sure. Like,
It does the opposite of what everything else does.
I thought
Because
you
then-
looked different.
then you can get petroleum type poisonings from breathing in the BHO.
Yeah.
and
Popcorn
He does
lung.
look a
That's
little
not good.
poisoned, right?
Is that why I didn't grow a middle tooth? Andrew? Is that why?
Oh my God! A Tom Cruise deal there. Yeah, here we go. But
Don't look at the director.
It's not a bad thing. Just always check your concentrate sources, please, people. Be responsible with what you're doing.
Yes.
I mean, it's
in
very,
everything, not just marijuana. Be responsible
Right.
in what you're doing in everything.
In general,
Don't be a douchebag, right?
Make healthy decisions.
But distillate is just like a more hardcore version of shatter in a sense, right? Or what's distillant again?
Oh, distillate.
Yeah,
Distillate. Okay.
So I always say distillant. I'm sorry, I'm
Well,
fucking
yeah.
high.
Instead of the purging process and the filtration process that BHO goes through, distillation's a little different. So you would start with the material. If you want to distill from the bud, that's cool too. There's many different ways to do it, but you would usually do it with a sort of like an alcohol pass, and a what's known as a fractionalization cycle, where you would take and use a vacuum pump and actually start running pressure through your big glass setup that people would use, for distilling, whether it be liquor or whatever you're doing, Well, this just happens to be your starting point here, distilling off, moving, turning into a vapor because of a reduction coil.
So you're
and
just
catching the oil.
That's badass.
You're just not using the corn or the wheat mash. You're using the marijuana.
Exactly, something very similar to how you would. It is very a little different process, but the same tools.
Yes.
Same tools.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
And
That's
same idea.
fucking
So-
bad.
Yeah.
Do you do that stuff or?
I'm a hobbyist a little.
Yeah,
but,
you get on the chemistry side of it sometimes. Or?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of questions about it all the time, so I'm glad we're able to cover some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, distillate I love because you can essentially take and fractionalize over and over until you reach 100% purity of something, which is really cool, or
That's
99.9.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So that's how they're getting usually the higher THC amounts when you see like a crystallized version of THC. Or you see a distilled version. That's what they're doing. Is they're they've removed the terpenes and they removed everything out of that, and they've actually honed in and fractionalized that THC to that point, so where it's just THC.
Yeah.
There's no other room for anything else there. It's been removed, which is cool because all around, I try to be a full spectrum guy. I want a little bit of everything here and there, and if I feel like, hey man, I'm not getting enough THC tonight, then I'm going right to that distillate that I've got sitting around that, is 100%, or 99 something usually or whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, and then moving on, other extraction methods, there's CO2. CO2 requires a huge machine. It's just a huge big old setup, where CO2 actually passes and filters through a big reservoir thing, Kind of complicated, but yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. And there's, you can do at-home extractions too,
But
just with
be careful.
cheesecloth.
You have to be very careful with some
No,
of
you
these
can't do at
extractions,
home.
yeah.
No, not
Don't do
the
that.
BHO.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I don't ever recommend anyone do that. at
Okay,
home.
good, yeah.
But the at-home extractions you can do with alcohol, like you use
Yes.
Everclear and cheesecloth and stuff like
Yes.
that. Make your own,
I think
filters.
we tried that. We tried that one time when we were kids. We tried to do the whole cheesecloth thing and that stuff. And
But yeah, and if it evaporates, just evaporate it all off, and then you got your resin there, so you can make whatever you like with it. If you want to decarboxylate it first, which means activating the acid into its full form.
I was going to ask
THC.
about that because a lot of people that I know kind of get going in this. They like to do the butter, right, or using some type of oil to make food with it.
Brownies.
But you actually have to activate the THC in order to use, right?
Yeah, I prefer that.
With a fat soluble?
But if you're
Don't you have to mix it with a fat soluble?
Well,
or
you have to
something like
heat
that?
it up to a certain.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, the activation will happen. Like you will have that either way. But if you're baking, sometimes people can get away with it, and actually it'll convert in the oven.
Yes.
So, but yeah, you do need to decarboxylate, which means remove the carbon that's in the chain of the molecule to turn it in from an acid to a.
So I've seen a lot of people use like you can use an oven, but pressure cookers. Is that right?
Yeah, there's different ways, but the oven is pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say about 220 degrees. Some people go as high as 240 for about 30 minutes to an hour, something like that. And then that should be enough time for that heat to help convert. That's essentially what you're doing when you're smoking flour, is you're converting that. It's generally in acid form by the time you get it in flour like that.
Wow.
So yeah, and then distillation process we were just talking about actually comes out all activated because it's already reached that point during the process. It's been heated.
So
But,
what about
most versions of shatter, like we were just talking about, are mostly THCA. Hasn't been converted yet. A small amount will be in there during some little process here and there, or naturally already converted due to oxygen, because the oxygen in the CBN steps that we talked about earlier, that would be THCA to start with naturally, and then over time progressing to THC, then CBN.
Very cool.
Make a whole new cannabinoid at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I forgot where I was at, but some guy was telling me like he ate a bunch of weed, just literally the buds, and like how high he got off of it. Can you get high of just eating buds? I thought you can't.
A small amount of that will be activated, so if you eat a ton of it, a little, but mostly that's going to clean you out because that's a lot of terpene in there and stuff.
Yeah,
But,
I just
but it is very
it was just
beneficial.
such full of shit because I thought for some reason it had to be mixed with like some type of fat soluble or something to activate in the blood.
It's got to be
or
converted
something
ahead
like
of
that.
time if you're having
So
it that
I thought
way.
he was such full of shit. But,
Yeah, it's not.
I didn't call him out.
He didn't get very high. If he did, he probably said weight. That he got super high and it wasn't
he
because.
acted like
But a
he was
small
like-
amount will
like,
be converted
I
in
don't
there
think
naturally.
you get high off of it like
So the
that.
beginning of Super Troopers, that's fake?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
Well,
he
he
ate
ate mushrooms.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
ate
it was
mushrooms.
He ate
and
He ate the
mushrooms.
weed. He
He
was
ate
eating the
mushrooms.
weed just to like hide it from the cops.
Yeah.
Got it. So the weed didn't trigger it.
No,
Okay.
you're not
Got
gonna
it.
you're not gonna experience that, but it is a great way to medicate though, because some studies show that THCA, like THC in its acid form, actually has really some of the similar benefits to CBD. Actually,
Nice.
it's kind of a little different. So depending on what you're trying to do, you should throw it in a smoothie in the morning if you have some.
Or
time
actually,
to
when I
do
have
it,
my
or-
dinner, you know what I mean? Like I have
And just
my
make sure it doesn't
chicken,
get
my
hot,
mashed
you know?
potatoes. I'll have my buds, and I'll just be like,
I just take a munch, dip a little ranch, right? Something like that.
"That's a good." That'd be funny though. If you're eating dinner, you have like your chicken, your mashed potatoes, your corn, and then your weed buds, and you're just like eating it like a fucking knife.
So do
Laugh
you
track.
do you post any of this stuff on the internet, or where do you go get this material for people out there that want to? Where's some of the best places to find in a site or anything, or is it just YouTube? Do you just start?
I just kind of jump all over. Archive.org has a lot of free cannabis books. There's a couple other websites that just have like just taken and made databases out of free books, that you can get. And some of them normally would cost a lot of money. But research is so sparse in this country right now with the medical system and it being legal at all that it's hard to get that kind of information.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it, people can turn to Israel.
Israel, yes, that's a great point.
Israel's huge. The guy, actually, THC and CBD were discovered there, I think in
Yes.
1962,
Yeah,
64.
isn't that
something
one,
like that.
one of the most amazing things to hit on this point real quick? A lot of people don't know is, the cannabis plant was banned here to do any research on. But one place it wasn't banned, and one place where this boom happened, that a lot of this research happened, and all this information started coming out, was in Israel, which blows me away.
Yeah, back in the 60s.
Back in the
that's right.
60s. And they were using this to treat PTSD, to treat depression, to treat all kinds of different things, to see if what would work. And they found a lot of those things in Israel back during a time that was pretty hardcore in that
people used it for a
region.
long time in
Yes.
that region in general.
Yes,
so,
and
yeah.
again, some of the Abrahamic religions, that started over there. The marijuana, the cannabis plant was part of their religious.
Regular upbringing too.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
amazing.
It is. It's absolutely amazing. But
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about and stuff that you wanted to? I know you brought some.
Man, we just kind of jumped all over.
We
it.
Oh,
did,
I know.
we
It's
did.
we
We're
just
gonna
wa-
have you
hey,
back, man.
It's just a
Yeah.
conversation,
Oh,
man.
cool.
We'll definitely
Yeah.
have you back.
Yeah.
Like we fucking trust me. We need guests
Yeah.
and shit. And fucking we love to have you. You're fucking
Yeah.
amazing and shit. But I didn't know if there's anything that you specifically wanted to mention really quick.
Something
before-
that's been kind of irritating me. I'll just bring it up.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Fucking Tyler's rant corner.
Intoxicating. I'm getting tired of this term intoxicating when it comes to THC because it is not a toxin.
No.
Alcohol is a toxin because when it converts in your liver, it converts a form of acetone in your liver. So you become intoxicated. I'm getting tired of hearing about that reference to that.
So let's hit on that.
That's fucking awesome.
I'm getting tired of it. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I hear it often. I hear it in politics. I hear it everywhere. I'm getting tired of people saying that it's a toxin. It does something completely different in your body. Everything that transpires is completely different.
So
as long as you have a clean source, you won't have any problems with that. And that's another thing I want to touch on really quick. If you're a flower smoker, let that thing go to white ash. Make sure it's white ash. If it's not, then the plant hasn't been flushed properly. If it sits there and just stays black like that or anything like that, the flushing process is important. It's usually, I've heard up to 2 weeks before they harvest plants, they'll take and run fresh water down in there just to flush out everything that was used during the process, the potassium nitrates, all the additives that could be there. Flush them out. It's, you can. Some people don't do it. So watch out for that too when it comes to how clean something is like that,
Real quick to end the show, I want to hit on something that you're bringing up with the intoxication thing, and that's a lot of these chemicals, they have a what's called an LD50. Is that right?
Lethal dose 50, that's correct.
Yeah. And alcohol being something that a lot of people can die on because of the lethal dosage. It does
and also,
alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing that people need to know is that it's basically physically impossible to overdose on cannabis, right? I mean, the lethal dose for cannabis is in the pounds, if I'm correct, right? And you won't have enough time to ingest that much marijuana to get to a point to where it's going to kill you.
You would be eating.
That's true. There is no known LD50 that I know of at all. I've never seen it in anything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's very good for people. I mean, and the idea that, the LD50 studies usually come from rats and how much a rat can intake. Now we need to look at some of the terpene. We need to make sure we're not using so many terps that we're making ourselves sick, because those have ready available LD50s that people can look up. But as far as THC goes, no, we haven't seen that. We've never seen someone die on an overdose, whatever you would like to call it.
So don't be scared to do
fucking
this
great
research.
way to end the show.
Just go easy on it at first, and mess around with CBD and any other cannabinoids that come up in your test results on your flower or however you're consuming. A lot of these tinctures out, they have the actual content of the cannabinoids on them, or you can get everything available, so you can actually see, okay, there's CBC in there, there's CBG.
Yeah.
Other things can be in there that can be helping you too, other than THC.
Always know what's being put in your body.
So. Keep a close eye on it, but cannabis at the end of the day be very beneficial. It's great for a lot of people. Like I say, in general, cannabis can be for everybody. It's just the idea is maybe some people aren't THC people, or they're not, something like that. So, just when I hear the whole thing about cannabis, they're always referring to THC, and it pisses me off. So there's other cannabinoids out there. There's, like I say, we're just on the tip of the iceberg of this thing, and there's tons below. So we'll bring in some more research. I can't wait to be back again with you guys.
Oh, dude, this was really,
Yeah.
Tyler, I appreciate you big time for coming on. This was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of shit.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks for bringing all these awesome products and stuff. And you can seriously come back anytime, man. Fucking your brother is one of my favorite people. I love your brother to death, dude.
He's
and when I met you at that at his gathering, I was like, this guy's got to come on. What's funny is your brother, for like the 2 years I've known him, was always like, I have this stoner brother, and you guys are gonna hit it off, and we fucking totally did, dude. So,
oh, dude, I appreciate it.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have him.
Been great.
I'm gonna have him on because once he gets his beer ready and shit, because he makes his own beer and shit. So we'll get your brother on.
Oh yeah.
But I just want to thank fucking Andrew for helping out on camera. You bad motherfucker. I appreciate you big time, Oompa.
Yes, sir.
Thanks
Yes,
for
sir. Yes, sir.
fucking drawing all those dick pics and pulling out your wiener over there in the corner.
I didn't do anything.
Fucking weirdo.
I was just
McClay,
helping out.
Thanks, McClay.
Oh, I really enjoyed it, guys. Really
Awesome,
enjoyed
Tyler.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Sweet.
Dude, this was awesome.
That's a sound cut.
Bang!